Chapter 47, Yaga Intrudes. Gojo and Geto's stargazing date ended with them tumbling into Gojo's bed. Geto was hoping Gojo would have sex with him. He was disappointed when it was clear it wasn't going to happen, but the disappointment didn't last long when they started to pleasure each other with their hands and mouths. Geto fell asleep with Gojo spooning him, his protective arms holding him close. When he woke the next morning, he was still wrapped up tight. He could tell Gojo was already awake, and Gojo loosened his grip so Geto could turn and face him. "Hey, gorgeous," Gojo murmured, and he kissed Geto's forehead. Geto smiled and lifted his chin to give him a kiss on the lips. "Sorry, babe, but I gotta go. I was holding it until you woke up so I wouldn't bother you," Gojo apologized as he climbed out of bed and headed to the bathroom. Geto watched Gojo's nude, retreating body and waited for him under the covers. When Gojo was done washing his hands, he started to go back to bed, but his cell phone rang. He dug for it from the pocket of the jacket he wore the night before and looked at the display. "Shit," he muttered out loud. "Yaga-sensei," Gojo answered. He looked over at Geto, who sat up in bed. His face was drained of all color. "Gojo, our agreement was you were to report daily regarding Geto's condition. I moved you into a bigger room as requested. The least you could do is let me know what's going on so I don't have to feed bullshit to administration when they ask about you," Yaga started in. "You are administration?" Gojo retorted. He heard Yaga exhale an exasperated sigh on the other end of the phone. "Suguru's fine. He's up and about, has his appetite back. We went out last night," Gojo said in a flippant tone. "Geto was admitted to the hospital with severe mental trauma and was catatonic for months. Just days ago, he was unresponsive, withdrawn, and barely functional. And now you expect me to believe he's well enough to go out?" Yaga said incredulously. He knew Gojo's priority would be to protect Geto, so he couldn't take his assurances at face value. "Gojo, I haven't seen Geto since we interviewed him at the hospital. I think it's time I see him in person," Yaga told him. "That's not necessary." Gojo's grip on the phone tightened. "It is. If he's as stable as you make him sound, then it shouldn't be a problem. I'll be there in an hour." Yaga hung up. Gojo turned to Geto. "Yaga wants to see you," Gojo said flatly. Geto shook his head, his eyes as big as saucers. "I can't do it, Satoru." "Suguru, if he sees how well you're doing," Gojo started. "What if I can't hold it together while he's here? They'll lock me away again. Or worse," Geto interrupted. Gojo's chest tightened. He put a hand on Geto's knee. "Just keep your eyes on me. He just wants to see that you're awake and alert. That's it." "Satoru," Geto's voice cracked and his hand shot out from underneath the blanket and grabbed Gojo's wrist. "I'll carry you through it. You don't have to convince him. I'll do that for you." Gojo pulled Geto out of bed so they could get ready for Yaga's visit. An hour later, there was a soft knock at the door. Gojo looked over at Geto, who was standing in the middle of the room, white as a sheet. "Just keep your eyes on me," Gojo reminded him. He released the barrier and let Yaga in. Yaga stepped in quietly, his massive frame filling the room. "Geto," he said in an even tone that belied his amazement at seeing him standing there as if his breakdown never happened. Geto couldn't look at him. His fingernails dug into the palms of his hands. He looked to Gojo. "Geto, I'm only here to verify that you're doing as well as Gojo says you are. That's all," Yaga assured him. Yaga hadn't come barging into the room with demands or threats. He was casual and a little subdued. Even so, Geto couldn't bring himself to respond, and his eyes stayed trained on Gojo. Gojo moved to stand between Geto and Yaga. Gojo looked at Yaga with an intense look that said, "Enough." Yaga nodded and headed back out the door. Gojo sealed it behind him and turned around. Geto was pale and trembling. Gojo went to embrace him and pressed his forehead to his. "You did good, Suguru."